Hi, students. I have a very fun story to read to you today. And in the story, we're going to be listening for the vocabulary words we've been practicing. So let's review them really quick before we read. Ready? The first word we're going to listen for is tools. Tools are things that help people learn or do work. Then we're also going to listen for the word discover. When you discover, you learn something new. This word is fetch. When you fetch something, you go after it and then you bring it back. Fetch. We have two more words we're going to listen for in the story. You remember this word? Rumble. Kind of like the sound of thunder or a car rumbling down the road. It's a long, low sound. Rumble. And the last word we're going to be listening carefully for is defeated. When you have defeated someone in a game, you have won the game. So when you have defeated someone, you won. All right, now that we have those vocabulary words stirring around in our brain, we can now read the story. And these are story cards, so our title is going to be on the back. The title of our story is Timimoto. And this happens to be a tale. It's a made-up story, and it's actually a story from Japan. And remember, a tale often tries to teach us a lesson. I wonder what we'll learn in this story. Are you ready to start reading? I am. Here we go. Timimoto, a tale from Japan. And we're going to be thinking carefully about how tools help Timimoto explore in this story. Many years ago, in a small village in Japan, an old woman and her husband were talking about their life's wishes. "I only have one wish," said the woman. "I am sad that we never had children. I wish that we could have a child, even if he were no bigger than my finger." The old man nodded and sighed. Later that day, the woman took her bucket to go fetch. There's that word, fetch. Some water. She was walking along and she heard a cry coming from the ground next to the path. She looked down and saw a teeny tiny baby. He was only 1 inch long, wrapped in a piece of red cloth. "My wish has come true," cried the woman. So she picked up the baby and cradled him in her arms. Filled with joy, she brought the baby home to her husband, and they named him Timimoto. Timimoto grew up, but he never grew very tall. When he was 15 years old, he stood only as high as his mother's middle finger. On the day of his 15th birthday, Timimoto decided that he wanted to see the world. "I am going on a journey," he announced. "We understand, son," said the old man. "We too wanted to explore the world when we were younger. Let us give you some tools for your journey." The old woman fetched a sewing needle, slid it into a piece of straw, and tied it to Timimoto's belt. "You will need a sword to protect yourself," she said. The old man went to the kitchen. He returned with a rice bowl and a chopstick. "You will need a boat and a paddle," he said to Timimoto. "You can get far if you travel on the river." So Timimoto is so small that he fits inside of a bowl for rice, and he's using a chopstick to paddle. "Thank you," said Timimoto. "These tools will help me as I explore new places." Timimoto said goodbye to his parents. "Be safe," they said to him. "Watch out for the night giant who lives down the river." Timimoto hopped in his boat and paddled away. Timimoto set out on his adventure to discover the world. As he was paddling along, he felt something sticky tap his shoulder. He turned and saw a huge frog on a rock behind his boat. The frog was trying to catch him with his tongue. "Wait," thought Timimoto. "I have the perfect tool for this." He raised his chopstick high in the air and whacked the frog on the nose. The frog dived into the water and swam away. Later, Timimoto arrived at the small village. He saw a crowd of people running towards their houses. He got out of his boat and walked into the village. He spoke to a man who was pushing a cart of vegetables. "Excuse me, sir. Why is everybody running?" he asked. The man looked down and said, "You must be new in town, young man. Hasn't anybody ever told you about the giant who only comes out at sunset?" Suddenly, Timimoto remembered what his parents had told him. "This must be where the night giant lives," he thought. Timimoto thanked the man and raced back to his boat. I wonder what's going to happen next. Let's read and find out. Timimoto ran towards the dock, but it was too late. The sun had already set behind a hill. What would happen next? Suddenly, the ground started to rumble and shake. The night giant appeared behind poor Timimoto. "I am hungry for a big dinner," the giant roared. "You are very small, but you'll do for my first bite." The giant scooped up Timimoto and popped him into his mouth. Inside the giant's mouth, Timimoto knew just what to do. "Mother gave me this sword for a reason," he thought. Timimoto lifted the sword high above his head and brought it down on the giant's tongue. The giant let out a terrible scream. Timimoto leapt out of the giant's mouth and landed safely on the ground. "That hurt," the giant cried. "I will never return to this village again," he whined as he ran back into the forest. One by one, the townspeople came out of their houses and surrounded Timimoto. "You have defeated the night giant," they cheered. "Thank you, friend." Timimoto bowed his head, then got into his boat and paddled toward home. Did you hear any of our vocabulary words in the story? I did. Now let's think back to the story and see if we can answer some questions about what we read. In this part of the story, what is the woman holding? Do you remember? And why is she smiling? Thinking back to the story, I remember this part. She's holding baby Timimoto, right? And she's smiling because she got her wish of having a child. In this part of the story, where is Timimoto going? And what tools did he take with him? Well, he's going on an adventure, right? And he's taking a rice bowl for his boat to swim, and he's taking a chopstick to paddle with. Anybody remember the third tool he's taking with him? Ah, the needle for the sword. Good thing he brought that with him, right? In this part of the story, what time of day is it? Is there a way that we can tell from the picture? I remember from the words, this part of the story, all the townspeople are going into their homes because the giant comes out at night. And I can tell it's turning from day to night because up here in the picture, there's a sunset. So I think it's sunset right before nighttime, before the giant comes out. Now let's think about the last part of the story. Why does Timimoto hold a needle? And how does the giant feel? Well, looking at the picture, we can tell by his face, he does not look very happy. Remember, Timimoto had the needle because he used it as a sword, as a tool to scare the giant and poke his tongue and escape. What an interesting story. I can't wait to listen for our vocabulary words in other stories that we read. See you next time.